Hey, I'm Marcus Shan, former #1 sales director at Cintas Corporation, where I led a 110-person sales org to profitably deliver 9 figures a year. And before that, I was promoted 12 times in 8 years and hit #1 every single role. And now I'm a sales trainer and coach of the fastest growing companies reps in the world. Now, every week I have about a dozen or so account executives from all types of companies like Salesforce, Thomson Reuters, Deal, Workday, and so many more that hop on a call together, and I coach and help them with their biggest sales challenges. I do my best to give them solutions that are as tactical as possible so you there at home can go and implement them as fast as possible to get results for yourself. So let me just run through a couple quick notes. What's up, Matt? Nice work. You finished #1 on our leaderboards for February, which is awesome. Congrats to you. And you're also 108% of the quarter with a few weeks ago, which is awesome. And you got vacation coming up soon, which is awesome. Joe, what's up, man? You did exactly what we talked about last week, and you booked a follow-up. That is awesome. Great job to
And
immediately execute.
and on that call, just executing the process, learned about another team of 4 people in a different part of the company that has the same problem. So the deal went from being this big to this big.
Great
So,
job, man. I love
yeah.
it. I got a note from Ivan. He already qualified for President's Club already with 4 months ago in his fiscal, which is awesome. Katrina sent me a note. She's 3 months into her new role, has cold sourced 4 deals. They're about to close for about 226,000. And the cool part is her deal size is almost 3x the company ACV, and one of them is like over 100, which is the biggest deal in company history, which is awesome. Joe finished 418% to quota, was promoted to senior AE, and he actually broke 600K in earnings. And this is pretty cool because he sells an SMB, which is pretty freaking awesome. And he has more time with the family. Nick actually just got promoted to account director, which is freaking awesome. And another Joe closed this under 700,000 business last week. So pretty freaking awesome. So one of the things is before I dive into just the challenges and really helping them solve whatever they're struggling with the most, I think it's really important to just kind of celebrate some of the wins, things we've heard so far in the past week since we last hopped on the call, because it's really important to kind of break free from some of the monotony and realize, hey, there's people out there winning. That can be very inspiring, motivating just to see peers, at other companies who are also running the same challenge just like them, who are actually implementing what we're teaching them, and they're getting results pretty rapidly, and it's pretty cool to see. So we always like to start the call off with just sharing wins, which helps kind of set the tone for the overall call. All right, we're going to dive into questions. We're going to jump into Philip. What's up? You're up first, man. How you doing?
Doing good, man. How are you?
Dude, it's been a little bit. Things going good?
Yeah, yeah, going great, man.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, let me pull your question up. All right. So, you're now booking meetings for an IT development staffing company. All right. Okay, they work in big companies. Are you calling IT project managers? You're basically calling into the enterprise, it looks like, which is awesome. But
Yeah,
the issue is nobody answers their phone.
yeah.
Okay, cool. Leveraging voicemails and people are not calling back yet. So first off, do you happen to know your connect rate?
No, I just started Monday, so
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Before we get overly anxious and make a bunch of changes, the first piece is I'll get the data. Like, all right, how many calls have I made? Um,
yeah.
what's the connect rate? Does your tech stack measure that?
No, it's just kind of using Seamless for like numbers and names and stuff like that, and then it just straight calling. Yeah.
Okay, so you're just like, all right, I feel like nobody's answering, which you could be right, by the way, but we don't have any like data to back it up quite yet. Is that right?
No, just what my manager was telling. This is like a really hard one to call into.
I literally added like a new tool for you guys to use for measuring calls. Ultimately, I think the first piece is we have to figure out what the data tells us first. Because like, let's just say, for example, like, did anybody answer first off?
No, no one answered.
Okay,
Just all
cool.
voice.
Do you
Yep.
know roughly how many calls you made by chance?
I would say it's probably just off the top of my head, maybe yeah, I think like 50 or 60 calls.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And then and the voicemail you left, what was the voicemail you left?
Um, Hi Marcus, this is Philip calling in reference to Pepsi. You can please give me a call back on my cell phone, blah 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 blah. Thanks.
All right,
Yeah.
cool. Is that the tonality you use, by the way?
A little bit closer to the tonality from the training.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then with the reference that you're leaving, is it always Pepsi, or are you using something that's going to make them like think, make them more curious?
So it's like Pepsi, Great Clips, Sirius XM Radio is just a few of the companies that they've been able to do work with.
Okay, so we could test it. I'll say first of all, we don't have enough data yet to make a bunch of changes, right? I have a
Yeah.
hypothesis. So whenever we don't have enough data, it's a hypothesis, right? It's like I
Right.
think this might make a change. So I think that the first piece is going to be whoever you're calling into, the reference point you leave, it should make them a little bit curious. It's like, hey, is this a potential partnership opportunity? Is there some sort of reason they're calling? So for instance, if it's like an IT company you're calling into and you're leaving the reference of Pepsi or Great Clips, I'm like, why? I'd be confused. And I'm not going to call back.
That's right.
I'm thinking it's probably the wrong person, first off, right?
Yeah.
Versus like if, for instance, you could test this, either you drop a competitor, which can be hit or miss depending on the industry, or a complementary service.
Got it.
It kind of aligns to that same thing, right?
Okay.
If it's like a, cybersecurity call, like leaving a voicemail about an MSP firm, okay, it's a little bit closer, right? You have a correlation to that, right? So I
Got
think
it.
it's really, really important. For instance, if you call into like a like Kellogg's,
Mhm.
and then you leave a voicemail of Pepsi, okay, that's kind of food, so that kind of works, right? That might get a better callback, right? If you're calling like say like I don't know, some sort of major salon, like $1 billion salon, and you're leaving the voicemail of Great Clips, maybe potentially, right? So you kind of see the correlation. It gets them thinking a little bit of like, hey, what's this all about? But again, that's a hypothesis, right? That's the first
Sure.
piece. What I would actually focus on, I would try to get some data first because some companies don't have a tech stack to actually measure the number of calls. So it's a really
Mhm.
easy way to kind of track it. You check on it, and then basically it'll click into there. So think through your voicemail by how you're doing it, and then I would start tracking your data.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Cool, brother. But just so you know, generally speaking, you might have like probably a sub 10% connect rate, which is pretty normal. Are you calling cell numbers, by the way, too?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. You're calling cell numbers? Okay.
I don't think I believe in calling.
Yeah. Are you double dialing?
No, it's single dialing right now. I don't have a dollar, just on
That,
my
that's
cell phone.
that's
Yeah.
okay. So, I mean, if you want to really test it to like really validate it, right? Just like, all right, you could just double dial.
Okay.
Is it going right to voicemail for the most part, or is it actually ringing a couple times?
It rings a couple times. Some of it's say you've been forwarded right to a voicemail.
Yeah, so they've gotten you. So you could, if you want to really test it, if you want to get really aggressive, before we look at all the data and all that stuff, you could just literally pull the number seamless, dial it, call once, hits a voicemail, hang up, call again, goes to voicemail, no problem, leave a voicemail, on to the next one, and then just track
Got
your
it.
voicemails.
Okay.
So
All right. Yeah.
that's one way just to kind of see if you can like get some people to pick up. But if you're
Got it.
consistent with the voicemail, I mean, you used it before. If you're consistent with it, if it resonates a little bit, it usually gets a pretty good callback rate.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Thanks.
So
I know. It's gold.
it is gold. It freaking works. So cool, brother. Good question. So this is a little bit of context. Phil's been in the program for several years now, and he's been with a few different companies. So he just recently switched companies. And before we start diving, trying to solve challenge he's running into, I need to have some more context around this. You'll see me actually dive in first to uncover, hey, like what's the actual facts and details and stats he actually has, because that helps us guide really what to go next, right? And the cool part is because Phil's been in the program for several years now. He's had a lot of success booking a lot of meetings. He gets a lot of callbacks using the same scripting that, he just kind of shared here, but I still want to just dive into the facts and see potentially, hey, what might be going on before I recommend making any type of changes. So a couple key points here. So you'll see me coaching Phil through this, and I'm not just telling him what to do. I'm actually guiding him to kind of think through like he's a scientist, like having a hypothesis and, thinking through what might be the why things aren't happening, and then getting the data, actually figure out and try to solve the problem, right? And I think it's really, really key, because it's not just telling someone how to do something is one thing, but also showing them how to think through it is really, really critical. And here in this situation, you see we're talking through like making sure he has his numbers so he can actually help make better decisions. But on top of that, also making sure he's leveraging little strategies like double dialing, which now some people don't like that and think it's, it's a little weird to double dial. But it's one of the things where it's up to you, whatever your comfort level is, but you may want just to see, okay, how can we increase our connect rate, and how can we actually see if we can book more meetings as a part of it? The second point I want to bring up as well is, you heard me mention, the voicemail scripting as well. And it's actually, we listed right here inside of my book right here as well, Six Figure Sales Secrets. It's a voicemail framework that gets a 70% callback rate. So it's very, very, very effective. And the cool part is, Phil has done it before, and he had a lot of success. And he booked a lot of big meetings with companies like Costco, TikTok, a bunch of big sports teams in the past in some of his past roles, right? So it's interesting to see him here in this new industry. He's trying right now, but he's not getting those callbacks quite yet. And oftentimes I find it's probably not a big tweak we need to make. It's probably just a tiny tweak. But again, like I mentioned to him, we don't have enough data. If it's only been like about 30 or so calls, it's hard to say why it's not working. So we want him to kind of leverage and control what we can control. And once we have enough data, then make better decisions, change it from there. Steph, you ready to chat about your trial situation?
Yes.
How are things?
Going well, actually. Sorry I haven't been in the team calls, but no, I thought today was a good time to
Great
check it
topic.
out.
Cool.
So
let's dive into your situation. So you have a tough contact to try to run a
yes.
trial with. You're trying to limit the trial to 20 and commit to 2 weeks. She wants 30 in 3 weeks and no commitment. Okay. You're trying to set up clinic hours to kind of make sure things go well. But she's like, no, can't do it. And she won't commit to a timeline for procurement. And she's not sure she can procure this year or not. Cool. Any other
no, that's it.
Okay, cool. Did she just say why she's resistant to even, let's say, for example, to like the number of users?
She just said that she thinks more users would be better.
Okay.
And she just said people don't have time to test it in 2 weeks, but that's not true. Yep. If you pick the right users and have them commit, they will test it.
Yep.
And I asked her about timeline, what's her procurement timeline? And she goes, I don't know. I don't have one. It could be this year, it could be next year.
Got it.
And so I feel like this is a waste of my time. If she's not going to buy something this year, she's going to ask for another trial. Then I have to go through the whole rigmarole again. And to me, I did have to send her off something, but I don't know if I'm going to get a commitment from any of the users or if it's procurement this year or next year.
Well, the nice thing is, something you did a really good job trying to get her to move toward the steps, some of the stuff we talked about in the past, which is awesome. So it's really key. Now, so why does she even want to do the trial then? She's not even sure if she's going to make a decision this year.
I don't know. That's what I'm trying to get at with her. But she's very evasive.
Yeah.
And she goes, well, we just want to do a trial because we need to test it out. And I was like, okay, well.
But why?
Yeah, it's not helping me find where's this coming from,
Yeah. When you asked her, what did she say? I'm assuming you're talking to her live about this, right?
Yeah, I talked to her live and she said, well, we just want to test it out. That's what her answer was. We just want to test this out.
But why do you want to test it out?
And I tried to ask her why, and she just didn't answer. It was like I was pushing too far with her,
Yeah. So generally speaking, in situations like this, if they're kind of being awkward, if you will.
Yeah.
It's listen, as you know, you said your team's very busy, right? Yes, team's very, very busy. So if we do a 3-week trial and we have 30 people do it, and you're taking time from their day job. They don't even have time to hop on meetings, to talk about this. And you're not even sure if you want to do this or not. There's no real reason why. Isn't that really a waste of your team's resources to even do this?
Okay.
Because she's not being forthcoming with it.
Right.
So we have to tell her, listen, to be very direct, it's hey, I'm basically going to waste a bunch of your time now and your team's time, and you don't even have the time to do it, and you're not even sure why you're doing it. So why do you really want to do it?
Okay.
So you need her to, if you, for lack of a better term, to sell you why they need a trial.
Okay.
Especially when they're that resistant.
Okay.
Because if she kind of sticks to her guns, where she's kind of I just want to do it and I just want to try it out, and maybe I'll make a decision, maybe I won't, I'm not even sure about budget, just kind of being super wishy-washy. At that point, you can make a decision and you can literally say, listen, if that's going to be the case, can I be totally direct with you? Sure. This doesn't make sense to do a trial.
Okay.
Reality is, I understand you want to try a trial out, but If it's just to try stuff out and you're just going to waste your team's time, like me being a good steward of the business, that doesn't make sense for me to do that. Like I know for my benefits, I'm going to potentially close a deal, but that's not going to help you. If it's just you want to just kind of try something out, that doesn't make any sense to do. I actually don't recommend this at all, especially if they don't even have time to hop on call and discuss and make sure it doesn't go well. Because I'll tell you right now, if you truly have a real problem, right, then we can focus on solving that. But it doesn't sound like you have a real problem here. So I don't recommend a trial at all. I think what we need to do is wait till you actually have more time or you think it's a bigger problem, then we discuss having a trial. What do you think?
Okay.
So you can really push back. Now, if let's say, for example, if they're like, no, we still want to do a trial, they're just kind of being, maybe they're keeping something close to the chest, if you will.
Right.
Then you have a very controlled small trial. Because again, this requires resources on your side to make it happen.
Right.
Or you can have a hard stop and say, we literally just don't do trials if it's just to like play around. So like in order for us to do trials, it requires resources on your side and our side, and we want to make sure it's mutually beneficial. And that's how we start on the right foot. This is for our best customers. And we found when we don't do it this way, it doesn't set things on the right foot. So I'm going to have to politely decline the trial and working together for this moving forward. So you can also just back out completely.
Okay.
But I think the first step is try to push the challenge and understand why it's so imperative.
Okay.
Right? Did she have any core pain points in early discovery with you?
So this is a really fun question here, right? Because this is about a prospect who's wanting a trial. And here, and you see the way, I'm also coaching Steph specifically is, I'm not saying what to do next first, not quite yet. We want to learn from the situation, like what could we have done differently? It sounds like she did a really good job doing a little bit of deep dive, but potentially you maybe could have just dove a little bit deeper, challenged them a little bit more to really see if it actually makes sense versus just saying yes to say yes. And here, as you can kind of see here, is I'm actually kind of walking through potential different scenarios that could happen. So she has some key word tracks and verbiage that she can utilize if she gets in a very similar situation. Because the best way to learn is actually take a look at what's happened in the past and help minimize for the future. Now, the second point I want to bring up as well is, trials is something that's really, really interesting because I see, unfortunately, a lot of AEs who just happily just give up a trial. I'm not saying you shouldn't do trials. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying you shouldn't do proof of concepts. They can be very powerful selling tools. I found personally, they're only the most effective once that companies decide, hey, you are like one of the top people we want to go with, and we feel really comfortable moving forward. We want to implement by a certain date. We feel good about the pricing overall, and they're agreeing to terms. And it's actually a two-way street because at the end of the day, when your company and you are committed to do a trial or proof of concept, it's going to require your time and your resources to make sure it goes really, really well, along with them too. So if they're not 100% there and you're just doing willy-nilly trials, you might end up wasting a lot of time. Because the reality is whenever you do like in-depth trial or proof of concept, it should be a very high conversion, 80, 90% to go to the next step, like a proposal to eventually close. And if you're not at that point consistently, that potentially may mean you're giving up trials too early on, and you may not want to qualify a little more, kind of like what I'm doing here and showing Steph how to do.
No, she hasn't. And I tried to get that out from her.
Yeah.
And the most she asked for is my top 25 users. And then that's it. And she was going to make this decision on who to pick. We did a trial a year ago. I put that in, and it was a total disaster because there was no commitment on her part.
Oh, weird. Good.
And now she comes to me again and she goes, we want to do another trial.
So that's actually very good intel, right? So like that's even better. That's an even better reason to not do a trial, because again, what you don't want to have is these Seymours, right? So did she just reach us and say, I want to do a trial? Is that what happened, or was it part of the process? The trial got brought up.
No, she just reached out and said, hey, we're ready to do another trial.
It's like, cool. Why? What sparked you to want to do a trial? So you really need to get her to tell you why. Like I'll only do a trial if at number one, I'm 100% convinced they're sold a problem. We have a really clear path to close, right?
Right.
And like they're looking to make a decision. Like that's like then it makes sense to do a trial. Otherwise, you get these people who are just tire kickers.
Okay.
Do you know what happened last time and why they didn't move forward? I know you said it was kind of a dumpster fire of a trial, but
the people she picked, the kickoff call was not good. She demanded like trial passwords, but she wouldn't let them use the interface full on. She was like using these temporary trial passwords, which people had to log in differently from their original logins. And so people just didn't do it.
More friction. Yeah.
And then there was no commitment, you know? So part of it was our fault,
Sure.
but part of it was on her too, because there was no commitment. And so I can't put it all on her group. I asked her point blank, like, what's your time for procurement? And she said, it could be this year, it could be next year. I don't have a timeline. Because,
Yes,
you know,
very
she
worrisome.
never asked about what it was going to cost either.
Yeah, I think we could dig a little bit deeper, right? So I think it's more so like, it's like, hey, listen, so, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Prospect, like I want to be on the same, before you can talk about trials, you should help me understand a little bit. We did a trial last year. I know there's a couple things we probably could have done a little bit better, but obviously you guys
Right.
didn't move forward. So what happened exactly? Help me understand from your perspective. And
Okay.
she might say like, well, you know, we kind of had low adoption of the trial, like people didn't like log in, blah, 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 whatever. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So what do you think will be different this time if you do a trial?
Okay.
So you're trying to get her to understand. And maybe her thought process is more so is like, we don't have enough people doing the trial. So like last time we had, you know, 20 people. I think we need 30 this time. So we have more people to do it. And at that point, we're trying to find like her reasoning, right? Because once you uncover her reasoning, then you can work with that. Because it might be like, oh, that makes perfect sense, right? Okay. So can I share a couple things I think will really help? Because, you know, I think we made a few mistakes last time, even on our side, that probably didn't make it go as successful. Can I share with you what I recommend instead? So you getting that commitment of like what's going to happen, right? Now, before we kind of talk about that, help me understand what sparked you to even think about doing a trial again.
Okay.
So you have to really get down to the point, really know why they want to do a trial.
I think one of it, without her coming forthright and telling me, is that everybody's adopting this new technology.
Okay.
And she's like on the top of the structure.
Yep.
And they still haven't adopted new technology.
Okay. Yeah.
So, you know, everyone's using professional grade AI for their business.
Yep.
And she's not using it. And she wants to be in the know, you know, but she's not willing to give me anything in return. Like she wants everything, but nothing in return.
Well, so I think the first piece is you do your best to basically do a rediscovery with her. Now, she still might completely shut you down, right? But that might be the point where you just actually completely back out, not even move forward with her.
She's an existing customer.
All right. So she's an existing customer. All right. So you kind of know already. It's kind of like, hey, listen, like she might even be worse later on as you give her more stuff, right?
Okay. No, all of that is good. I am going to set up another meeting with her and see if I can find out some more information because I just don't have the full picture and really, you know, to me, a controlled group with committed people to give feedback at the end. And we plan everything out and it's very tailored and it makes logical sense now. Last year, we just had the wrong people in the wrong roles doing the trial rollout. Yeah. That's the reason it didn't go well on our end.
Yep. Yeah, I'll come to the table, have like a list of requirements to discuss together. Okay, listen, we'll happily do a trial. I took a look, and we actually did a trial with you guys like a year ago, and it didn't go great. It didn't go great is what it looks like, right? Like, do you happen to know anything about that? You remember? No, you don't remember? Okay, this is like why move forward. This is how we do trials. So you can follow and sort of like, look, we made a mistake, and we want to make sure it doesn't waste your time and your team's time.
Okay.
Because that's what's going to happen if you do it again without having clear requirements or clear constraints in place and like clear deadlines in place. Like it should be like, here, okay, this is what happens. This is how we do it. Time after this, we decide on this. And by the way, all pricing should be agreed upon too. So this way you don't waste time. You get to the end, they're like, oh my God, it's how much?
Right. So how do you bring that up where she's not asking for pricing and not really ready to commit to procurement timelines? Yeah. How do you bring that up?
So I wouldn't bring up pricing until we were clear on the problems, right?
Okay.
So like it's more like, hey, listen, like let's take a step back. Like I know you want to do a trial, but I feel like I don't have a good understanding, and I'm very worried we do a trial, it's going to happen exactly like last year, in which a trial went on. Your time is spent, our time is spent, research spent across the board, and it wasted really your time and our time as well. I don't want that to happen again. Right. So can you help me understand what sparked you to even have an interest in the trial again? Cool. What are we
Okay.
trying to solve right here? Why are you saying that? What happens if you don't solve this problem?
Okay.
This way we're understanding like what the current state is and that desired state of that problem. So then this
Yeah.
way it's like, okay, cool. So I understand, right? This is a problem you're running into, or this is a worry you have that you can be behind the AF, that's what they say, and that you're not on top of it. You're worried that fast forward a year, your team has not adopted it at all, and that's gonna be very worrisome for you. And you might get beat up by other competitors. Is that right? Yes. Okay. So with that being said, then, what's the time frame you want to solve this problem by?
Okay.
Instead about, I honestly, hey, when do you want to procure this? Okay, when do you want to solve this problem by? Because it's about
Okay.
them now. You want to solve this problem by, uh, April 30th. Perfect. You want to solve by April 30th, then you can kind of work backwards in timeline.
Okay.
So you want to get really clear on that, right? And then
Yeah.
it's like, okay, cool. Once you're really clear on that, it's like, okay, cool. So let's kind of talk through like, so you have an idea, because here's what's going to happen. When we do a trial, we're going to choose a select group of people. This is what we found works best. We're going to get really clear. Here's how it looks. This is how to make sure it's really successful. If it goes really well, you feel really good, then we're going to partner up together. We'll take care of, the agreement, paperwork, etc., whatever, right? And we should be good to go from there. Now, from a numbers perspective, do you already have numbers for them already? Yeah, like,
I do, but she doesn't know what
yeah,
they are.
yeah, no problem. So I think number one, okay, does she agree on the problem? Yes. Okay, cool. All right. Now let's talk about what's going to look like a solution overall. Here's what's going to include. Here's how much it's going to be. Okay. Does that fall within range? Who are other stakeholders that make sure we get buy-in on this?
Okay.
Then we do trial. You might find out you might have to do a business case, right? Maybe to build a business case internally, get other people to sign off on it as well. Now, I want that done before a trial's done.
Okay.
Because otherwise, waste a lot of time doing a second trial now, and then you still have to get 5 more people on board. Okay, so now your whole process is going to take you like months and months, maybe a year to make happen.
Okay.
So TLDR to do a rediscovery
Okay.
of everything, so then you can set really clear next steps on what's going to make sense.
So this situation with Steph is such a great reminder why we can't think of discovery as like a step in the sales process that we just check off. At the end of the day, discovery really is an ongoing thing that happens throughout the entire sales process up and through the close. And this is a good example here, because Steph had met with this prospect over a year ago. They did the trial, probably a little bit too early on. And now fast forward a year later, they're doing another trial again. And there's definitely a lot of missing information, a lot of key things that actually make a trial successful, right? One of the things that can be most frustrating, which I made the mistake of, which is, I go and I do such a great job, I think, in discovery, and I do an incredible trial with them, and fast forward 2 weeks, then like, hey, cool, let's look at some numbers, and then I go through numbers and like, whoa, it's too much, or whoa, we need to get like other people involved, whatever is going to happen. And ultimately, I ended up not winning that deal because I really didn't have good deal control on it. Now, I'm just saying that generally speaking. Some of you might be saying, well, hey, Marcus, sometimes like, the business case should be done after. Yeah, that's true. You're right. That can happen at some points, right? My point is more so is you want to make sure before you commit to a trial that you've done a really thorough discovery with them and all parties. So this way, that trial is showing them how you can solve their biggest problems. Because if there's no problem to solve, then you're basically kind of hoping that you have a cool product that hopefully they'll just buy, which can go really either way.
Because it may not be the
Okay.
trial. It might be like, let's just say, for example, you uncover that there's 4 other stakeholders that have to be bought in. So now you need a game plan with her, potentially build out a business case in the next several meetings that they can present internally to get buy-in to make sure they work on solving the problem.
Okay. Okay.
So have her jump through a few more hoops before you commit to trial is in a nutshell. So then this way, hopefully by the time you do the trial, it's like, yep, Steph, okay, we have buy-in from all 4 people. Literally, like, they feel really good about the pricing and everything else. They're all know there's a problem. We just have to make sure it actually works. To really de-risk our deal, we just want to do the trial and make sure that all the end users also agree too. And
Okay.
now it's like, cool, here are the parameters of the trial. Let's do the trial now with the plan of when to close as well, already established.
Okay. That makes really good sense. I like this. I like it a lot.
We're just slowing down a little bit up front to make sure the deal moves forward at the right pace we want it to move at.
Okay. All right. No,
Cool.
that gives me a lot of ammunition to talk with her.
Yeah.
So thank you.
You
Thank
got
you
it.
very much.
Of course. Great to see you.
Yeah, same here.
All right, cool. Haboosh, what's up, dude?
Dude, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, man.
I've been pretty quiet. I've just been ramping up a deal. So it's been we're learning fast out here, but it's good.
Good.
It's good. So
Good.
these are a lot of the lessons I've learned from you, which helped me a lot. So thank you. We've gotten off to a good fast start.
Love it,
So
brother.
it's good.
Okay, I'm gonna pull up the thing. So you want to kind of walk through the buying process for your gong call, right? Okay.
Yeah, just click on that. See what happens.
Okay, about right here. Does this seem about right?
Yeah, it's probably it.
All right, cool. So we're gonna play it up. Okay, cool. You can hear it when I play it, right? You can hear the audio?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's not very loud, but
That's okay. I'll juice my audio really quick. Let's look like this. All right, and there's a specific question regarding it. So we're
yeah, so essentially I have the VP of People Ops, the controller, and then some people that are just like managers on the call.
Yep.
And essentially they have a new CFO that they don't know I know that. They got about four months ago. They're owned by private equity. So
Yep.
I'm really grilling them on the buying process and making sure they know how to buy, given
Yep.
the new CFO. Private equity is probably squeezing them for margins.
awesome.
So like I want your coaching on how well I handled it, and if there's anything I could have done to better coach them through the process,
Cool.
knowing they have a new CFO, etc.
And then there's like,
No, dude, it's not it.
Bye for
Here's what I'll do. I'll find it. Do you want to answer someone else's question?
yeah, find it,
Yeah.
and then we'll circle
So
back, and then
annoying.
we'll dive into it.
Cool.
It's all good,
Thanks,
brother.
man.
Brandon, what's up, man?
Hey.
I read this morning. I'm like, oh, interesting. Very interesting. So you got a very large opportunity. Okay. You have a current MSP. Okay. Raising money. Mm-hmm. All right. CFO's telling them to save as much money as possible. So the existing spend is already 800K.
Yep.
All right. All right. Sovereign clean. Okay, sweet. Most of government subsidies. Yep. Doge is cracking down. Yep. Okay. They will eat the market if they become it. Okay. So there's huge opportunity for them to basically crush the market, if you will. Okay. So you uncover the gaps, which you don't know. Okay. What's the role of this guy that you're meeting with right now?
There's two people. There's the CTO and then there's the director of IT.
Beautiful. Okay. All right. CTO. So you're doing a deep dive. And then you have another call coming up in about a couple weeks, a budget exercise. Okay. All right. So director of IT is asking a question back because they're very engaged. Okay, cool. Now, is there a specific question in play with this deal? Because it sounds like it's kind of progressing nicely so far, right?
Yeah.
That's good.
Make sure that like I'm able to close this $1 million deal.
Yeah.
Like,
I love
it's
it. Okay.
it's a
Yeah.
huge commission check.
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
me just-
Yeah. Okay. Fair enough. All right. So I think the first piece is the CTO the economic buyer? Do they have the final say, or do they have to check with anybody else?
Considering that the spend is already there,
Yep.
I would imagine that the CTO is the final person because he's not going to be asking for more budget from the CFO.
Yep.
He's just swapping it for a different vendor.
So this is how to kind of think it through, right? So the first thing I would do, if you want to think super tactically, right? Let me pull this tool up. This is how to strategically map your accounts, seven-figure blueprint tool. They want to kind of map the account out, make it a little smaller so you can see it. So the top stuff is kind of self-explanatory, right? Like, these are kind of obvious ones. But the big ones is really what you start putting down here. So for example, you're going to want Carl for sure is going to have a role. My assumption here, because especially if there's already some sort of control like on this by a CFO say spend less money,
Yeah.
like when they're making a change, my assumption is probably going to talk to the CFO still, even to spend less money potentially.
Yes.
I'm going to assume that. So
Okay.
potentially we don't know if that's a pink flag. So
Yeah.
anything we don't know as an assumption is going to be a pink flag. So like
Yeah.
he's probably a technical buyer realistically. So he can't say yes to you, but he can say no.
Sure.
So that potentially going to be a person that's going to be part of it, right? Or potentially maybe even the CEO. Just given like, especially when they're kind of in this like, I think you mentioned they're starting to raise money,
Yep.
right? So sometimes they don't want to make too many changes if they're raising money, right? Like that's
Mhm.
also,
Yep.
that could happen. They'll say, hey, look, we're trying to change anything right now. We're trying to like raise money and then we'll make changes after, right? That
Mhm.
happens too. That's like, it's
Yep.
very normal, right? So that's why I think it's really key to kind of like start mapping out first of who the stakeholders are. Like it sounds like the CTO is in like trouble mode. They know that there's an issue probably, right? We got to make a change, which is great.
Yeah.
Okay. How about the other stakeholders? What mode are they in? Are they neutral? Is it ego? We don't need to make any change. We're totally good.
No, they're both very engaging.
Beautiful.
What would you consider growth?
So growth means, hey, we're growing rapidly and we are outgrowing our current tech stack
Yes.
system.
They both feel that. Yeah.
Beautiful. Awesome. That's really good. So growth and trouble are the best modes to be in. Because
Okay.
growth means we have to make a change. Trouble means we have to make a change, right? If we don't, it can be very costly.
Yeah.
You start also map out the personality types.
Yep.
So like, are they a driver? Are they like a get done type of person? Like I'm gonna make it happen regardless. Are they expressive? These are good. These are personalities that can help you move the deal forward. Or are they really analytical?
So is a technical buyer for sure. She's the one who's asking all the questions back and forth.
She's probably
She's
analytical.
very engaged.
Yep.
I don't know if that's analytical. It's more like just she's very detail oriented person.
Analytical.
Analytical. Okay. Yeah. Very analytical. Whereas the other person, the CTO, is very big picture. He's just like, he like does not give a shit about any of the details at all. He's just like, is this going to drive my business forward?
Yep. Good. Is he an action taker? Like, is he like very decisive?
Yes, he is.
Good. It's really good. So that's a driver. So you want people like that. Those are one of the best people because they can help you move the deal forward. Because a lot of people get are very indecisive, right? You'll go through level of influence, right? Like low, medium, high. Sounds like they're both pretty high, right? Are they a champion, right? Have you met with them? What's their direct wins? How bought in are they, right? And then what's the proof to back it up? And you want to map all your stakeholders, right?
Okay.
I would say one potential pink flag I have right now, talking out loud, is for $1 million deal, only having like 2 people involved is a little worrisome to me.
Okay.
Like to me, it's like are we missing anybody else? Are there any other stakeholders we have to get bought in? Right? Is it like do they get influenced by the board of directors? Do they get influenced by the CEO? How about the CFO? Is there anyone maybe even like lower level stakeholders potentially they want to get buy-in from?
Yeah.
Right. So like those tell you a lot in terms of like what you might have to do next, right? Because like have you walked through like, hey, listen, like let's just say like you've called number 3, you understand budgeting, right? Hey, you guys have a good idea. So what's gonna be call number 4 for you guys then, do you think? Based off what you know so far.
As of right now, I don't know. So the point of call number 3 is that basically what they're working on right now is they're pulling up every single invoice and renewal dates for all of their tech spend. And we're going to put it in one spreadsheet and be like, all right, here's what you're spending. I know everything that you're spending across like your people, across all your tools, map out the renewal dates. And the idea is to go through and be like, here's what you can consolidate to us.
Beautiful. Good. So that's very, very valuable. It's very valuable. Cool. So then
but I don't know where to take it from afterwards. Like if we say, okay,
So on that call, before you kind of go into that, I would want to find out the overall decision-making process to get crystal clear. Hey, listen, today's call it's going to be an exercise we walk through together. So we kind of idea where all your spend is, what we can consolidate. So we kind of have an understanding. Now, typically when companies are looking to make a shift over to how we can provide a service for them, you usually need to get, the buy-in or internal approval from other people within the same organization. Usually the CFO, usually the CEO, and potentially a board of directors, and maybe potentially some like engineers or end users.
Sure.
What's that look like in your situation?
Okay.
So you want to get like really clear. Imagine if they had to like write an instruction manual for you. Step 1, we do this. Step 2, this. Step 3, like what would that look like? Get them like verbalize it for you because that's going to help you determine what step call number 4 is going to look like.
Sure.
Because call number 4 could be me with other people in the organization to get them on the board and get them socialized to the concept.
Right.
So that's a big piece. And you can use this tool to kind of start mapping it out because it's like, all right, who else is in there, right?
Yeah.
So like to me right now, early on, it's a pink flag. We just don't know who all the players are, and we don't want things to get stopped, right? Also, like the other pink flag is like they're raising VC money, and it's like is that going to impact it potentially? Are they going to want to do something after the money's raised? Timing wise, when they want to solve this problem.
One of the pink flags that I have on here that I wanted to bring, or more of a red flag that I wanted to bring up on the next call was, what's the renewal date for their current partner? Because they're spending this $800K with their current partner that they don't really like, but Is that in August? Is that like next December? Like, I don't know when that is yet.
And why don't they like him?
So they don't like them because they said that I think I put that in here, but they're not proactive.
Okay.
Um, and they don't have a lot of insights into what the work they're doing. So they're feeling that for about, call it $1 million a year, they would want someone who's more on top of it and more in because they're essentially outsourcing, a lot of, right, $1 million worth of work.
Yeah.
They want insights into like, okay, well, what type of work is being done?
Yeah.
How many tickets are they? How fast were you to respond to them? Were there any breaches?
Yeah.
All that stuff.
Have they already talked to the current vendor about these things?
I don't believe so. I don't think they're telling their MSP that they're looking for someone else or that they're
Well,
like,
I don't think they have to tell them they're looking for someone else, right?
Okay.
It's like, hey, so help me understand all these challenges. They're not providing insights. They're not proactive. They're not really being a trusted advisor or trusted vendor for you guys. What's that conversation look like when you talk to them about this?
Mm.
So this gets them like, because here's the thing. Like, remember, you're gonna always go get status quo.
Yeah.
So like, you can promise them all these things. If they're a smart business owner or a smart organization, they're gonna say, let me just talk to original vendor and say, can you do these things?
Yeah.
It's far easier to just get them to do the right things.
So the last piece that their MSP is not doing today is the managed compliance piece.
Sure.
So they're currently using a tool, a GRC platform called Drata,
Yeah.
and they actively have to become SOC 2 and ISO 27001. And the big value prop right now of like why they really like us is because they're like, oh wow, you also do that third piece.
Yep. Now, is it a nice to have, right? So here's the thing. So this is what the CFO is going to argue, right? So like the CFO is going to be like, well, hey, listen, I know this looks like a really cool company, but like, can we just get our current vendor to do these things and see if they can do this other thing that we need to?
Yeah.
That's what they're going to say. That's like the easiest, like, we don't make any changes. We try to get, So you want to get them thinking about this now, right? Because like this mentally prepares them to also have a business case to say, hey, listen, here's a big problem we're running into. Here's the thing we already tried to do to solve the problem. And it's not working. So of course, this is why we need to look outside.
So basically on the next call, so besides my budget exercise and, that sort of thing, I should have ask them, hey, have you had a conversation with your current vendor about the lack of insights, lack of proactivity, and the fact that they don't do managed compliance? Like, is that something that you've already talked to them about?
Same question. Rewords it as open-ended. Hey, when you talk to them about these problems, like what do they tell you? Because when they're trying to save the $1 million account, that's the first thing they're going to do is like, hey, we're going to do all these things. They're going to promise them all these things, right? So you want to get them kind of thinking this way already. Because then it's like, if they haven't looked into it yet, it's like, okay, like, yeah, you're right. We actually haven't talked to them quite yet. Like, so why not? And you might find out, listen, we're just sick of them.
Yeah.
Okay, totally get that. But let's just say, for example, if you talk to your CFO, they say, go talk to them first. Like, don't you want to see what they could do it first? And it's okay if they can't do it. The reason I bring this up now for you, Mr. and Mrs. CTO, is because like later on, if we need to have a business case to kind of defend this, I found that CXO is always going to push back. I'm like, can our current company do this? Because to make zero changes is always the easiest thing to do. So we get them start thinking this way, right? So they can help build that case in their mind. And it's not about, hey, like we're looking to switch current vendor. Like, can you do these things? It's more so, hey, we want you to start doing these things. Now, here's the cool part. If they're not doing it already, it probably means when they try to do it, they're not going to do a great job. That's right. So that's the cool part. So when they start doing a poor job, it's much easier to take them away from them.
Right.
Because then it's like, we talked to them. They tried to do they're just doing a terrible job.
Right.
So later, when you're taking that business and they're quitting the current vendor, that vendor can't be like, well, we're going to start doing it now. They're going to be like, well, what's changed? You haven't changed anything. You tried to do it. It's still bad.
Right.
So you're positioning certain things up front before it becomes an objection is all you're doing.
No, this is really good. So
get just kind of thinking that way, right? So for sure kind of find out like, that's the case because if they haven't tried to fix anything yet, which is okay, you just want to get them thinking that way.
Yeah.
Before it gets to that point. because you still have a very good value proposition, but you have to have like not just the gain in the situation, but you need the pain. You need to have both. The pain really drives the action.
Yeah. No, I feel like I do need to uncover more of the pain. And I feel like we do have this one exercise that we typically do with them, or we do with these bigger customers, where we have like a time log where we say, it adds up to like 4,000 hours per year. And basically we go through with them and be like, hey, typically with customers that we work with spend 200 hours a month doing this, 100 hours a month doing this. Like, where do you fit into this to kind of drive that pain?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's really good. So is it usually pretty accurate in terms of like the
it is. I mean, I've done this enough times that, you sort of average out. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah, is it an adjustable calculator as well?
Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. Awesome.
Yeah.
They can really see the pain. Yeah, because there's remember you're gonna sell them logically.
Yeah.
But you need to sell them emotionally too. So you need to have both components where they're like you want them fed up. Like, yeah, they try to fix these things. They promise X, Y, and Z. They can't do it still.
I definitely don't have the emotional part in yet.
So this is where every call should be a combination of both.
Okay.
Which it all is you go a little bit deeper. It's a little bit deeper. Hey, so like when you talk to them, what do they say? Oh, well, they promised this. They haven't done it yet. I mean, that sounds like it's pretty frustrating, huh? Oh, it's so frustrating. Wow. Okay, cool. Like aside from that, like why else is it frustrating for you? Because I mean, it's nice to have the insights, but like, why is that important to you? So you have to get them really emotional. Like, wow, like here's why it's really bothersome for me.
Okay.
Really key. As part of the process, right? When you're essentially you're trying to basically fill this thing out, like with them, if you will, and at least up front. So let's say, for example, you find out about the CFO and maybe some other CXOs or other people. It's like uncover what's most important for them. How do they view the situation?
Yeah.
What's the biggest core initiative? Because everything you're going to provide has to link up to not just your CTO's core initiatives, but also every other person that you're talking to.
Yeah. I feel like a good way to do this, because I know the CFOs and CEOs not going to be on the next call.
Sure.
I feel like I can sort of push them and say like, hey, what do you think your CFO would say about this?
Exactly right. You're exactly right. So you can do it, even if, for example, you're meeting just with that director of IT, right? You can do the same exercise.
Yeah.
Like, hey, what do you think? Because it's amazing what they'll tell you from their perspective.
Yeah.
And those are just little pieces of insight that you can utilize as part of the process. Because we may need to start looping in other stakeholders, right, to make the deal happen.
Definitely. I mean, at this size spend, there's no way they're not going to be involved.
Yeah.
At some level.
So because we have to help them de-risk the deal.
Yeah.
Because number one, you have to show them why it's not risky to make a change.
Right. Thank you.
Great question. All right.
So a couple key points here, which are very, very important to understand here. So what's actually really, really cool about Brandon, actually his whole team, right? Because his whole team is actually in the program, is they were actually really good at selling like SMB deals. They were like 8, 10K. They had no problem. Closed like clockwork, really good with that. But once the deals are over 100K, their win rate dropped down to like 5%. So they really struggle with that. But when we started working with them, kind of just teaching their team and training their team how to be far more strategic about their deals, within about 6 months' time, their win rate for enterprise deals actually went up to over 20-25%. But on top of that, the deal size went over to $250,000 plus. So it's actually really cool to see him talking about this, $800K to $1 million deal, right? Which is like, even bigger than the other deals. So here though, what we're talking is really making sure that we're able to sell at all different angles, right? But more importantly, it's getting him to think like a chess grandmaster. And when we think about chess grandmaster, they're always thinking 3 to 5 moves ahead to help make sure that deal moves forward. But not just for that single stakeholder, but for all the stakeholders as part of it, right? So you can see in some of these examples here where I'm coaching Brandon on the types of questions he wants to be asking up front, because it helps prepare the champion for those type of objections, but also gets them thinking now. On top of that, we also know that the number one reason that most deals are actually lost is actually due to inaction. So literally things getting stuck in status quo. It's far easier to do absolutely nothing. It's far easier to stick with your current vendor, hope that they get better. So we want to make sure we're preparing our prospects for that type of situation by asking them these type of questions. Also, if they need to sell internally to other, the CFO, or CXO, and we know there's potential for other concerns that they're going to throw at them, we need to start getting them to think now. So we need to start training our process and getting them mentally ready for that so they can deal with those objections. And then the third point you heard me mention critical is, for sure you want to sell them logically, but there's an emotional part too. When the problem is really, really big, it's going to bug them and bother them. And that's going to be a key part of the change. If you only logically sell them, that might move some process, but at the end of the day, you're still selling to human beings. Human beings are very, very emotional creatures. So you need a very good balance of that logic and emotion as part of your sales process. And that really stems from the types of questions you ask and how you run your overall sales process.
Abush, we're going to come back to you. You got time?
Let's do it. You use the same gong call.
Any context on this section?
No, same people I mentioned. There's a lot more we can do with them because the private equity, they're a little bit cost conscious, I can tell. So you notice how nervous she is talking about pricing.
Sure.
So this is, that's really the only context.
All right, cool.
Do it in, you don't have to pay the $12 per them. And that's where we're at. I'll pause. How does this pricing feel to you?
I mean, it feels okay. I will definitely want to see what we can do on the PEPM for our Spain employees. And then just so I'm clear, the deal HRIS, is that unlimited amount of employees or is it a maximum of 45?
No, it's going to be an unlimited amount. So if you want to add more folks to there, you absolutely can.
Okay, cool. That's good. I just wanted to be clear on that. Do we have room there to negotiate the PEPM?
Yes, we do. There are things, because it's managed payroll and their services, there's always so much flexibility in the profit margins that we can pull on to make it a win. Yes. So the answer with you is yes. I'm here to win agreements. I'll tell you where I get pushback when people really want me to. If your CFO gets this, he's like, oh, we want an X amount of haircuts because that's what we do with vendors. We're a different vendor. There's services fees that go behind that number. There's all this other stuff. It's a little more complex than me yanking on a software margin and being like, oh, let's go down X amount. So I'll work with you to make a win-win agreement. I want you to feel good about it. I obviously want us to feel good about it. So I'm totally happy to work with you. The levers that we have at our disposal are like term length. So if you're like, hey, we can do, some people go with us with 5.
So not really good so far. I personally don't like to start dropping like other leveraging points here because it sounds like I need to negotiate with other people potentially in this deal. So
that's very fair. I didn't love that response. It was too long, but yes.
I'd probably condense it down. Like, hey, listen, at the end, we want to have a win-win situation. So everything is negotiable. Now, potentially we'll probably ask for like a ballpark range then, because now you're exposing yourself. Like, hey, here's what I got so far, right? Because you can sense if we go back just a little bit, I feel okay or something like that.
Yeah.
It feels okay. You can hear the tonality kind of shift a little bit, right? Like, okay. So it's like they're kind of like, okay, there's concern there. So she was cool because she actually kind of elaborated a little bit more, right? So it's like, hey, no problem. Again, everything is, of course, negotiable. But was there a range in your mind that you're already thinking of before this call? Yeah. You get her to kind of start talking about this, right? And again, this is a data point that you might need a little bit later on, for what you want to do. So, because if you drop off like the term length too early, that might scare them. They're like, oh shit, like okay, like oh my god, 5 year, like we were. I thought it was like maybe a 2 year, maybe like they start getting scared, right?
Yeah,
they get a little skittish potentially.
Now, first off, John is awesome. John's been in the program for a couple of years now, and what's cool is John, when we first started, was pretty middle of the pack AE. He was over at a different company, Sprout Social. Started working with them and became #1 in closed won revenue at his organization, which is pretty freaking awesome. So anyway, he's at a new company now. He's adapting. He's learning the ICP. He's learning the problems. And one thing that I caught right here, which I think is really important, is fundamentally he's got a lot of great fundamentals in place, as most great reps do over time. But one of the things that I observed right here was, some of the subtleties of just selling to humans, right? So I could sense just in the call recording where literally by just hearing some verbiage that the prospect was using, how they said it, there was some doubt behind it, right? And these are some of the things where, for a lot of sales professionals, it's really easy to miss. And this is where active listening is so key, because oftentimes, whether it's a discovery, a demo, whatever stage in the process, we're so focused on what we are going to say next and trying to make sure it sounds good, where sometimes we forget just to be present, to really, really hear them out, really hear the words and really hear the meaning behind what's being said, because oftentimes what's being said is more than just the actual words.
I'm not asking you guys to do that. So go do 5 year, 4 year, or if you're like, we can, we can commit to signing by this date, or I'm happy to work with you. I'll be fully transparent. Not gonna hide any fees. I'm playing games. I'm very straightforward. But there are limits to what I can and cannot do.
Okay.
I'm curious, where exactly,
Great.
what range were you guys hoping for?
Beautiful.
Just so I can start to better understand where your head's at.
Great. You looped it back anyways. Beautiful. Yeah. So I don't like to drop any of these levers. I'm going to keep all the levers close to my chest until I need those cards.
Okay.
You get the range? Okay.
Yeah. There could be, if we wanted to, I'd probably use our pricing to stick on something. If I have to pull it out of FM or something. I think too, in Alcandor, Anna, I was more of a direct question, but if you tell me that, hey, pricing aside, like deals your vendor of choice, that's an easier ask of my pricing team if you guys are transparent about, because.
So it actually would slow down here, right? She says, hey, is there any flexibility implementation cost? Potentially, but tell a little more. What do you mean specifically?
Okay.
Get her to really talk about the implementation cost. Because, like, is there, again, a number in her mind? Is she thinking zero? What is she really thinking about? Is she worried about the upfront? Because it could be a multitude of things. Because maybe she's doing the math in her head, right? And she's like, okay, like, implementation cost is $32.50. Maybe it's a cash flow issue.
Mm-hmm.
We don't really know. Maybe she's good at pricing, but she's worried like, hey, like we don't have that level of cash flow to drop up front. So maybe it's like she's cool with the overall cost, but maybe you have to structure where it's like it's spread over maybe 3 months, or it's so there's many angles potentially you can go with this, versus like just jumping to like, I can play around. Like we don't want to assume. So it's kind of like this. Like when someone says like, hey, man, like what's the typical term you're selling for agreements?
For a payroll like this, it's usually 3 years, sometimes 4, sometimes 2, but I'd say 3.
Cool. So let's just say, for example, you're like, hey, we can't do a 3-year agreement. Like, I'm sure it's probably happened so far, right? And most reps are like, well, let me see what I can do. Here's some, I can do this, I can do that, etc. Now, we don't know what the concern is with 3-year, actually. So it's like, it could be a multitude of things, right? Like it could be, number one, which is most common, they're not saying that we're worried this is a bad choice and we're stuck for 3 years. Okay, that's most common, right? It could be, well, we're actually financially kind of in a not a good spot. Like, what if we go out of business and we don't make it 3 years? Is now the company still getting held accountable for like getting billed out for this, right?
Yeah.
It could be they got burnt in the past with a prior vendor.
They did get burned by a private vendor as well. Yeah. I still could have asked that though. It's a good question. If you keep going, you'll notice I didn't.
Good.
But that is
always find out. Always find. So I used to sell 7-year contracts and 10-year contracts. Okay. The standard was 3-year. But because of how I handled the objection before it happened, I got way more term, which would benefit the customer and benefit my pocketbook because I would have accelerators in every year past 5 years. So like I was very strategic in how I would do it because I knew how presenting the agreement term was very important. All right. But I had to deal with the objection though. I had to know, I had to figure out, I didn't know why they were concerned with the objection. So,
yeah.
So this is really common across the board, which a prospect drops an objection and, we as salespeople, we believe we know what the objection is, but the reality is oftentimes there is more to the first level objection that we just need to dive a little bit deeper into. So using, simple phrases like, hey, can you tell me a little more about hey, when you say X, what do you mean exactly? Like I gave some examples here, whether from a contract term or to implementation costs, but just think anytime someone gives you an objection, what's the real root cause of that concern? What do they really mean? What's really at the very, very basis that's actually triggering this potential fear?
It makes everything easier in Alcandor. So if you guys are at that point, or when you get to that point, let me know, and it's easier for me to then go to my VP and then go to our pricing team and say, hey, we're vendor of choice. We're just trying to make it work. You got to see if we pass it through. So that's my ask of you. If you get to that point, let me know, and it makes everything easier. But yes, I can work on implementation costs pending. I can pull out a couple of them, and it's still something I can get approved.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
And then I think that from our end, I think we can commit. I know that like we're nearing end of quarter here, but we can commit making a decision and having a signature by that.
I like that. That's great. I like that.
Yeah, but she didn't answer my question. She says she can make the decision, she didn't commit the deal yet. I'm asking if she's committed a deal.
Okay, let's take a look. Let's find out here.
So I think that could be your team, yeah.
Okay. And I mean, I'll ask a more transparent question. You guys seen our pricing, et cetera. Like at this point in time, like where's your guys' gut leaning? You guys have seen everything essentially. We'll talk about payroll. Assuming we can execute your guys' payroll timeline needs. Like, how are you guys feeling?
Great. Going for like close. Let's see.
Dude, that was all you, man. I just took that from you.
Let's just see how they feel. Let's just test the waters a little bit. Is it too hot? Is it too cold? We don't know.
Is as long as we can make the timelines of payroll work, deal is looking pretty good.
Okay. And is there anything that
Great. Okay. All right.
would keep you from wanting to move forward aside from that?
I think that again, if like the payroll timelines were completely out of whack, like we're getting, closer to that 5, 6, 7 days, I think that's going to be really tricky. I think the other thing that I'm really mindful of is again the bit about Cody, making sure that that is a doable integration with Deal, and it doesn't add a bunch more work for Cooney. That's going to be really, really critical. And then, yeah, I mean those questions that Diane had around like all the functionality with NetSuite, that would be the only other thing that I want to make sure is really tightened up. But outside of that, like if we can come together on those functional bits, Deal's looking like you guys are ahead.
Okay, got it. And I appreciate the transparency, and it sounds like really making sure payroll timelines are met. We can find, even if we can't connect with Cody for some reason, we find a reasonable workaround. And then the same thing with Diane's NetSuite use case. There's at least got to be a reasonable workaround that makes everything easier to do the same or easier.
Amazing.
Okay, got it.
Great recap. I mean, you can see it's like awesome. You nailed it there. Very, very good.
And I know you mentioned you have to run this by your CFO. Is there anything that he's going to find important?
Here's one little thing. So you can be against a couple other people, right? She said you're leading the pack, you're ahead. Depending on how you're feeling, I like to find out what's the gap, how far ahead.
Interesting. How do you ask that without maybe you just ask it, hey, how far ahead are we?
You can say, hey, listen, if you don't mind me, you can be playful. Hey, if you don't mind me asking, I'm a competitive guy. I grew up playing sports.
Oh, I like it. Okay, I like it. Yeah, I feel that.
And then you say we're leading, which is awesome, but are we a little bit ahead? Or are we
are we wow, are we Usain Bolt ahead? Yeah.
You can be playful. It depends on the prospect, right? You can't do it for everyone.
This would have been a good one. This would have been a good one. This would
She seems pretty open, right? So she probably
open.
Well, I don't want to say, but you guys are pretty far ahead.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
I like pretty far ahead. That's very, very good. All right. Okay.
Or anything he's going to ask that's going to be different than what you guys would ask for. Usually CFOs care a lot about payment timelines, or how is this reporting going to help me, cash flow, especially, it sounds like you guys may or may not be a risk. So it's just what help me understand what's going to be important there for him or her.
I would actually say, so Diane is on our committee for reviewing contracts, so she is a great one to answer that question.
Diane, my friend, what's up?
So yeah, monthly invoicing is our ideal, if not monthly and quarterly for sure. Did I hear that this was a 3-year pricing structure?
When we do payroll, we would.
So not a bad question. I sometimes like to leave a little more open-ended because we're trying to vet out the CFO here, right? That's really the goal here.
Correct.
So yeah. I'll probably leave a little more open-ended. So, I mean, it could be payment timelines. It might be as simple as, hey, so I know you mentioned it runs by CFO. What do you think they might say?
Yeah.
A little more open-ended, right? Now, if they're not really sure, they can kind of guide them a little bit. So it's hey, so actually, I think they'll probably be on board. Now, if if payment timelines is a really common thing or reporting, if these are really common issues, hey, so usually a lot of times, and if they haven't brought it up yet, CFOs are very concerned about number 1, payment timelines, number 2, reporting, number 3, cash flow. Is that going to be a potential worry on their minds based off what you know?
Okay.
You're just seeing how they feel. No, it's totally good. Then you might bring this up later, but okay, cool. If they push back, what are you guys going to do?
Yeah, I didn't yet this time. I need to. Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one.
What are you going to do?
Yeah.
If they have, what concerns do you think they might have? If they say, let's keep doing what we're currently doing, how are you going to handle that? Want to see how strong of a champion these are.
We start at 3-year pricing structure. Again, I'm willing to, you guys have been transparent.
Because here, now you're in the weeds, right?
Yeah.
Again, important. It is important to a certain extent, but I need to make sure the big players are totally good, right? So she's on the committee, but she's the final say on the committee.
No.
Right?
Absolutely not.
Okay, let's take a look.
It's just that's typically where we start because this is payroll. Folks don't jump from payroll vendors very often. They do, they can, but but yeah, so.
We still like to have that flexibility though, if possible. I get what you mean, but jumping payroll is not ideal for anyone involved, and I very much agree with that, but it's just nice to have that, to be some mind that we wouldn't be, just right now we're owned by another company, there's some regulations by them, let the who's to say, I don't know how long we would be under them, just all of them.
No, I mean, we work with companies that are doing M&A or their own companies. that's one of our maintenance cases with the people data. So no, I do not get it. Dan, what?
So this is an interesting situation. If I understand right, it sounds like they're owned into the company. Obviously, if they disassociate, etc., they're kind of a little bit worried about, are they going to be stuck to deal if they have to do a deal, whatever, right? This is just so I understand. So at deal, do your agreement address that exit clauses given certain scenarios? Is that part of the agreement?
That's a great question. I do not know. My gut would tell me no.
So
But
send them to collections.
yeah. Is there also other exit clauses in your agreement to exit out for service-based, issues-based, etc.?
I have no idea. It's a great question.
Little action item. I would read the ins and outs of your agreement, right? And the reason this is really important, so if you want to give greater term, you understand the ins and outs of your agreement and you actually use it as selling points.
I remember this. Yeah, I remember you saying this a year and a half
This
ago.
is super powerful, right? Because let's just say, for example, if you know, like, if they can exit out because if it's like, hey, listen, if your company basically dissolves because it's acquired by some other company, or there's a big parent company that swallows you up, or there's issues and you're not happy with our service, here's an exit clause for that, or what you can do.
Yeah.
That actually you actually want to present it up front.
Yeah.
This is really powerful. So for instance, like before you get to this point, right? Before I can go into term. So usually, I'll give you that. It'll sound something like this. Hey, listen, let me show you the best part about what we offer. Is number one is we literally back what we say and we say what we're going to do. It's actually written to our agreement. Let me pull up really quick. You pull up like the say service guarantee part of the agreement. You pull up a DocuSign, a blank one. Here's what it says. It's going to be a bunch of like legal mumbo jumbo, and then you interpret it, right? So let's just say, for example, the M&A thing. Say, listen, like I know you mentioned like potentially like there might be buyouts, shifts, whatever. Parent company, totally get things change. Inside this clause here literally says if maybe the ownership change or things change, obviously this agreement basically dissolves, right? So meaning if you guys were bought out and their payroll company can't use deal anymore, this basically dissolves the agreement and you can walk away just like that, even if you're 30 days in. Now, hopefully it doesn't happen, right? But this protects you, right? Second, what a lot of people are really worried about, especially if they've been burned before in the past, is they're stuck with really bad service. So there's issues, payroll doesn't hit, reporting's bad, blah, blah, blah. You get oversold, and they're stuck for like 3 to 5 years, which is the worst thing possible.
That sucks.
Let me show you the guarantee we have on our agreement. This says, if we don't do what we say we're going to do and you submit a ticket here, we don't solve them this time, you can walk away with 0 penalty.
Yeah.
So that means, again, you could literally like be 1 day into our solution and we're not following through. You could do these things and you'll be out within 7 days. Okay. So this is regardless if you're in a 1 year, a 5 year, shoot, it could be a 300-year agreement, but it would not matter because you're 100% protected by the term of the guarantee right here. What do you think?
That's fire.
So when they understand it, they're like, oh, I guess you're right. It doesn't really matter. Now you can say, well, listen, it's not 300 years, okay? It's not even 10 years. It's only 5 years. Now you can stop talking.
Yeah.
You see how framing, it's really quite powerful, right? Because these things you can leverage. These are selling points that, again, majority of AEs don't read the agreement. They don't use it as selling points. But those
smart.
They can be bullets in your gun up front. So, all right, we'll keep rolling here.
One of the best things you can do as an account executive is increase your actual business and executive acumen. And part of being a great business professional is understanding the ins and outs of your company, not just from the product perspective, but also understand like the ins and outs of even the agreement. By literally understanding the ins and outs of the agreements, if you have any questions at all, you can address them accordingly. But on top of that, as you heard me mention, there are potentially points in your agreement that could be a selling point against other competitors depending on how you view and how you frame it. So this is why you want to always be looking to improve your game and know the business inside and out, because this may help you have better business conversations with your prospects.
Of course, because they want here. Of course. So they kind of back into the corner a little bit here, right? So you can kind of see why that position I just shared is so powerful, because it's like it's far easier to like get more. And also on top of that, let's just say you leave with 5 year, and you can negotiate down to 3. Aren't you still in a pretty good spot?
Yeah, well, that's why I did the 3 years. I thought they probably would want 1 or 2, and so I was like, they're more of a startup. They're more startup than mid market, and I was like, all right, I'll throw on a 3. But yeah, no, I agree with you. You're right. If
you go higher, you have way more room to negotiate, right? But on top of that, like so the way I would do it is like Here's my 5-year pricing. Here's my 3-year pricing, which is higher. Here's my 1-year pricing is even higher. So actually, it would increase the price point based off the term.
Yeah, it's smart.
So like, because I'm running a business here, right? This is how you want to think. You're running your own territory, your business, right? So it's like, so now if you do some of these things up front and you go for the 5-year with that guarantee, you can have a certain price point. Now you can negotiate down. Okay, it really beats, because absolute worst case, if you have a fierce negotiator, if you can go down to like 1 year and you can drop the price by X%, like you have the bottom of the bottom if you need to. But everything above is up to you, right? Like you can do whatever you want, right? So this gives you better deal control. This gives you better control on the pricing, the ACV, and negotiating.
Yeah, it's smart.
Those are cool.
I like that.
I can do 1 year, but here's a price point. But again, this is why we guarantee up front, because this really protects you. So if I'm you, I would actually recommend, we just go with a 5-year, because again, like I said, this could be a 100-year agreement, but you're protected based off the parameters of the agreement. Okay. And you get the better pricing. So your pricing is locked in. The guaranteed price increases every single year.
Yeah.
If you have that, So this way it's like you're really pushing to protect them. So that's more advanced, but it works quite well.
No, it's good.
Yeah, 1 year. But again, like kind of what you said, we also realize this is a little bit different from some vendors, but I mean, 1 year would be great to see. Yeah, and then also I know, right now we have 45 employees. I don't know how it would work, for the increase or the decreasing would also be allowed. Like, a lot of times.
Oh, great. Yeah, that's a good
one.
point.
We'll say 45, and if you go up, then we'll be the difference. But then it'll be pretty clear that if you go down, SOL. So we would want to have that flexibility as well.
Yeah, and if it's structured as a per employee per month, then I imagine it's going to be true to per employee per month. Like, how many payrolls we're actually sending out a month, right?
Well, it really is a commitment to that employee count. So that's really how we typically think about it. I can go back and ask, but I mean, those are slots that are being committed to.
Got it.
Yeah. So
Is that a common question, by the way, or potential objection? Like, hey, what happens if we go up?
No, which is why I was not quite. The up is obvious, but the down is, I had no idea.
So that's okay. And something to think about as well. So if that potentially is a consistent, now I would imagine eventually it's going to be a common concern, right? Because they're like, hey, we're growing right now, but like, what happens if we shrink? Especially a little more older companies, when they know it goes up and down, right?
Yeah.
Or if they're in an industry where they happen to have just high volatility in employee counts, like that's a good thing to actually build in up front. So you actually sell against an objection up front.
Okay. That's good to know. Yeah, that's a very good idea.
It's that transparency. Hey, listen, like, it's 45 employees. This is how much it is per employee. Now, you guys are growing right here. I'll be really transparent with you, because I know most time other people aren't, right? But like if you guys were to say dip down to below 35 or so, it does increase the price point a little bit, and this is what the price point would be at. Right? Obviously, we don't want to get there, but I just want to be really transparent, because I know what it's like to be a customer and have surprise fees, and so the worst thing to have happen, and I don't want that to happen. So now you feel really good as a seller, right? Because now down the road, it probably hasn't happened yet, but eventually it will. Which is like, CS is like, hey, that John sales guy said promised this, and he now it's changed. Why is that? But it just wasn't a conversation earlier on. So
yeah,
you can anticipate concerns up front and like solve against them. But even better yet, from a longevity perspective, a deal, when they know you sell deals a certain way, and you are always doing the right thing consistently, they're like, okay, I don't believe you, customer. You're lying. John's very consistent. This is what he does every single time. He's very clear. It's written to the agreement. This is what he does. He builds really good, reputational equity.
Yeah, I know that is a good idea. Thank you. So I'll sell against that next time.
Yeah. The only thing you see is a consistent thing. That's the thing. So I can imagine if it's more volatile business industries, you'll.
This is a little more volatile business, but yeah, it's still a good idea.
Yeah.
Online we do see, list price too. So I think that's.
We want to be under that. Yeah, we want to be under that for sure. I think the other part that is interesting is
I'm so dumb. I know.
If we reach a certain amount of employees, PEPM actually goes down. So like if we reach 60 employees, there's actually a $1 PEPM discount per employee. And then there's like, this sort of like laddered approach. I don't know if that's something that deal has done in the past. It could be an interesting way to structure it.
You can skip over. I'm just explaining pricing tiers. You can kind of skip over this.
Okay, cool. So
I just go right over. Yeah, just like right there. Right now, go to the left.
Yep. Go back.
Like right. Honestly, this is fine too. We're getting to the end. There's a couple important parts, but that's it.
I would be always answer. We'll preface. We do not price like a Blue Marble or Paylocity. We're a totally different breed of vendor. We just don't do that. But I will actually show you. I just want to preface. Some people are gotten burned, and I get it. And, families are unfortunate in my line of business. Some people are not very transparent. So I will definitely get you guys transparency around that. Any other things that come to mind as far as contracting goes? We can get ahead of.
The only thing I can say is we also require review of our legal department as well.
Good, Allie. Okay. Legal review. Okay.
What she looks for, we just can't speak to what exactly she looks for in terms of outside of the financial terms and.
Okay. And so that's helpful too. So it sounds like the steps to get into a confident yes/no decision here are first, let's take care of the product stuff. So it's going to be this meeting the payroll timelines, talking to code integration, and then the NetSuite integration, making workarounds or making sure they connect. So that's number one. And then number two will be obviously contracting and legal. They usually coincide when we do situations like this. And is there anything else that we need to happen for you guys to be able to move forward at that point?
I don't think so.
You
would feel comfortable, honestly, she's going to bear the brunt of the work here. So I need her to feel comfortable that this is actually a.
Okay, you can pause it.
Yeah, a couple other points I think is probably important to understand. So we kind of hit on the coaching of the CFO, other potential stakeholders, right? Because that can potentially change what the actions are actually going to be, right? I think if you feel pretty good about the integration and these type of things, I think it's good to, hey, listen, cool, I'm gonna find this out by this day and let you know. All right, cool.
Yeah,
we'll lock it in, right? And then number two is contracting and legal, right? In terms of legal, and you might have done this, but they've already told you we feel good about you. We generally feel pretty good about the pricing, etc. Right? If I can, I want to get ahead of legal. Literally, hey, listen, this is actually what I recommend. Typically, when you submit an agreement to legal, how long does it take to turn around? And they'll be it's 5 to 7 business days, blah blah blah. Depending on what they have on their plate. Okay, cool. Here's what I recommend for next steps. Number one, I'm going to verify these things. Let's have another call, discuss these integrations in a week or so. Make sure we're totally good on that. You guys good with that? Okay, cool. We'll discuss that timing in a second. Number two, let's get ahead of legal right now, because what I hate to do is delay our time frame because of everything that we're going to do here. So what I recommend is actually, what's the name of the, is there a general legal email I can email and a copy of a blank agreement over? This way they can start processing it early on. We can get the red lines of that thing done early, because if they get done early, once we agree to the rest of the commercials, we can just insert those things and they have one document they've already pre-approved, and now we're just making sure everything's aligned to. Would you be cool with that? And then number two, what's their email?
That's good. What happens if your legal team says we no longer do red lines? That's what our legal team essentially says. Unless it's
they don't accept them.
They don't even take them.
Oh, see, that'd be tough internally. Yeah. So again, this is why I wanted to get in front of this up front. You're right.
Yeah.
It's if that might be the case, they might just be hey, no, we're gonna send over to you. You get it back as full red lines. All right, nothing we can do, unless you can sell internally on why you need red lines for the deal.
Yeah, they're pretty against it at this juncture. So I think there's too many contracts flying around, and so I think they just said no. Yeah, how do you frame that if you're no red lines, from our internal team
to the prospect, right?
To the prospect.
So, and if that's that's really common, then I'll probably do a little more qualifying here in terms of legal. And what that means is it might sound something like this. Hey, so typically, when you submit an agreement over to legal, how long does it take? Well, it takes 5 to 7 days. Cool. Now, do you happen to know, your legal team, are they the ones that are going to redline everything? It's a whole new document by the time it's done. Or are they usually pretty good when it's kind of standard boilerplate type of legal language?
Okay.
Kind of see what they say. If they're well, it's kind of between. I've seen it go both ways. Okay. You say, cool, no worries. Now, I wanted to be kind of set the expectation up front, kind of depending on what the asks are. I've worked super hard in the past to try to get things through legal, but a lot of times if there's too much red line, it's very unlikely to make it happen. So I kind of want to set the precedent. So I don't know if you use any leeway at all, but I think we should get heads up front, maybe provide them a copy up front, kind of see what they say. But if you do you happen to know anyone over there to kind of talk to kind of minimize any red lines? Because that'd be the best, I think, ideally, if we can.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a good talk track. Okay. Okay.
Cool, brother. Anything else
Cool,
on the
dude, thank you for the coaching. I'll come back next week.
Sounds good.
I'll come with a more detailed question around it too.
Sounds good, brother. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Marcus. It was really good to see you. I appreciate the
coaching.
Always a pleasure.
Man. Cheers. All right. Joseph, what's up, man?
What's going on, Marcus?
All right. Okay, let's take a look here. This question, you have an outbound source opportunity. Good job, you're booking those meetings. Good disco number 1, lead insights. You book disco number 2, and then they cancel later, push it out a month. Example today. Hey guys, decline this meeting. It doesn't align with our priorities right now. Working with a private equity partner to contract another consulting firm to do similar things. Appreciate your time. Keep being in mind if we ever need this kind of partnership. Okay, got it. Any other context around like the example like this?
Well, so it's been pretty much 2 that have been like this in the past week or so, where Disco 1 goes really, really well, right? It's outbound, so we're coming in trying to just show them why status quo isn't good enough and lead with some insights and industry trends and things like that. And then towards the end of the call is where we sort of tease, here's how we're helping to bridge that gap. But it makes sense to have a second call to go a little bit deeper into this, right? Super enthusiastic, pulls out the calendar right then and there. We get it booked, right? And then day of, we get messages like this. So I sort of feel like your hands are tied behind your back a little bit, right? Because I can't engage over an email the objection.
Let's talk about how to react to this, and then maybe we'll talk about up front if we do anything different. Now, first off, do you happen to know what your show up rate typically is on the second call?
On the second call?
Yeah, for the disco number 2?
Yeah, it's usually 90%.
Okay. So this might just be a one-off then, right? And so and you never want to change too many things because every now it's like you might just go for like a run for a while. We're consistently at 90% show up rate for second call. And it could just be the run of the week where just you happen to have 2 in a week. And it feels really painful because it's like, oh, happened twice this week already. That sometimes happens, by the way. All right. Doesn't necessarily mean did anything bad. That's why it's very rare you're 100% for every call. All right. So it's just that's my pre-framing. All right. Now you get this email. Did you by chance call the guy once you got the email?
No, haven't called him yet.
That'd be the first thing I do. You get that? I'd call the guy immediately. And because it's far easier to have a live conversation with the guy to see really what's going on. Because I'm imagining he probably didn't mention anything about this other stuff right here that he said in this message, right?
No, absolutely not. And what's interesting is that this may be the fastest outbound booking we've ever had. So like literally 2 minutes from pickup to book meeting, right? Clearly going through a lot of pain with this right now and like right place, right time. And didn't mention any of these other factors on the first call, right? So it's a little bit interesting to get this type of message for sure.
So I would usually you get that message, immediately call, right? And, hey, just got your note. You don't play like a super like nonchalant, right? Hey, Joseph, just got your note. Hey, no sweat. Just so I have a little bit understand as well, like because I don't maybe I missed it, but I don't think you mentioned the private equity firm. Can you walk me through a little bit of what's going on exactly? And just get them to kind of understand the situation, right? Because that's going to help you uncover what's going on and potentially help position maybe a next step you can still potentially book still. Right? So like, let's say, for example, if he does actually do the answer, it's like, oh, they do something very similar things. Hey, no problem at all. Like, listen, this is not my first rodeo. Like sometimes it's instead of just having one single person you just kind of trusting to do, it's good to have at least another comparison or a better way, potentially another way to look at things. Would you be open to a little deeper conversation so you have another benchmark to make sure you make the best decision so you don't make the wrong decision for your company to make these changes? So you're leveraging a little bit of like, you might make the wrong decision if you just go with this person. You're trying to like, hey, how can I get on a call with you to help kind of guide? That'd be like my first go-to. You try to call and get them to like, I try to do like a mini discovery and book another meeting. Now, let's say they don't answer, which is also very, very possible, right? So you're going to call and direct to a voicemail or direct to an email, excuse me. And your email is going to be probably to reply back to this, right? And we'll see if we can like book another meeting. It's going to be hard though, just to be quite frank, right? Because maybe something else changed. So like this guy not bringing this up, potentially my assumption is there's probably other stakeholders in the deal. My assumption. What was the title of the person you met with?
He was head of IT and security.
Head IT security, right? Maybe got excited after your call, right? Kind of mentioned to somebody else, like, internally it's probably high up, like, hey, this is what I'm looking at. And they say, oh, actually, no, like you need to talk to this other person we're going to do some stuff with. And they go, oh, had no idea. Okay, let me decline this meeting. That for sure can happen, right? So you can just reply back to the email. It could be as simple as, hey, so thank you so much for the heads up. Like perhaps this might be of value for you. A lot of times when, when companies like yours are looking to maybe make a decision or looking to solve this XYZ problem, we actually can share a couple of different ways to help make sure it's a really good execution of the solution, even if they go with somebody else. Would you be open to hopping on a deeper call to talk more about that? And your goal actually is to actually help set requirements in the next call. So kind of said before, we're trying to set requirements of like how it should be done. So when they have those requirements that only you can really fulfill, when they go to the current company, like, oh, they can't do these things, it makes them more open to have a conversation with you to be able to potentially look at other solutions too.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of why it's hard, because when you get that outbound meeting, the first meeting's only 30 minutes, right? Yeah. So you do your intros and your contacts, and then, I'm already assuming that 7 minutes of that call are done from the intro and then the next steps, right? So I have a short window of time to be able to build trust and authority and then sort of tease what we're able to do. And so part of this is like, man, I didn't even have the chance to show you what it is that we're actually doing. So it's more of like I'm battling what his idea could be that we do, right? But he doesn't actually hear it from the horse's mouth, right? So I'm trying to figure out, even, is there anything on call number one that can be done to get some sort of emotional anchor in the fight so that call number two doesn't get flakes? Even if this is a one-off scenario, I think it's still good practice to try to figure out, like, hey, what can we do on call number one to
when you share insights, are you sharing what does it all?
So we're starting off with just the overall state of the industry and sort of what other companies are dealing with. And then it tends to lead to a really good segue into what we're offering to address this problem. But it's nothing, we're not really going deep into it. It's more just we're able to fill these gaps. We have several ways that we do this. Would it make sense to talk about that on another call? Right? So
what you could do, if you want to have a little more call control, is you remove the entire parts about. Don't even talk about it at all. So like you can still have the discovery, or you can lead with insights and do combo discovery, share the key insights, and get them really talking about their pain, right? So then it's far easier, like, all right, hey, listen, like, we're coming up close on time. Like, I'm assuming, do you have a hard stop at the bottom of the hour? Let's just say they do. Now, if they don't, then obviously you can go a little bit deeper if you want, right? But let's assume that they do have a hard stop because you have a time constraint. Let's set up another call. On the next call, I'll share with you how we can solve some of these core problems. So this way you can spend majority of the time really focus on their problems, right? And then on the next call, then it's like you can hey, based on what we discussed last week or earlier this week, here's your core problems you're running into, which we're seeing across the industry as well. Here's the impact we're seeing, and here's what's happening because you're not solving these problems. Now let me show you how I can help you now with other XYZ. So you can still do that as well. So because this also helps minimize chances of like, oh, we have someone who can already do it. Now, again, I don't know if I'll make that change quite yet. If you only had 2 calls that happen that way, if it's like every call or pretty consistently that's happening, that probably tells you you're probably sharing a little bit too much about and they're not quite sold on the problem. Because like we have to make sure they're sold on the problem on that first call. That's like the number one goal. Get them sold on the problem. Or get them open to the idea there's a potential problem and get executive sponsorship to be able to meet with other stakeholders in their company to get the facts, show them that's a real problem.
Yeah, most of this, what we're discovering with outbound, is it's project creation, right? Because their status quo is that they're doing everything internally, and that's just the way that it is. We are, 1 year into what is a pretty innovative service that we're providing. And so most of these guys have never even heard of this. So I think if the onus is getting to show them why what they're doing today just doesn't make sense. And tease like what life could look like if you didn't have to worry about doing a task.
Oh yeah. Now something to kind of think about. I'm just kind of talking out loud, right? Because you also book something. Do you guys have like an audit type offer as well that you guys do?
We don't, but I have been thinking more about ways to get those types of offers to provide value and really help illuminate the problem further.
Like it's just one of those things where, I know for my business, actually, it works really well with smaller businesses. So they're a little bit hesitant to invest a lot into like coaching, unless they're super problem aware, right? Like, which is not most people, right? So for these unaware prospects, and they have an idea about some problems, having an audit solution where I'm able to audit what they're currently doing and make a recommendation, whether it's with me or doing something they fix internally, to show, hey, here's this report now. Here's all the problems you're running into. It's almost like a paid discovery. That's what it is.
Yeah.
So
It's
something
interesting
kind
you
of think about
mentioned
eventually. I think that'll work well with smaller businesses if you're for like the smaller ones.
Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned that because most of the calls from the prospect's mouth directly,
Yeah.
they come into the call and I usually start with, hey, I know that we called you. This is something you weren't expecting. What is it that inspired you to want to take this meeting today, right?
Yep.
And 9 times out of 10, it's something along the lines of, well, it's sort of my job to just keep aware of what's out there on the market and blah, 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 blah. So they're definitely in like status quo mode,
Yeah.
but they're open to seeing, right? So
Yep.
maybe that type of offer could be the catalyst to get them into action.
So what I would do first before I create another offer is I would focus on revamping discovery, getting like super into their pains, right? Again, super into their pains. And are they telling you they have a hard stop at the 30, or is that something you're kind of assuming?
No, I usually check with them at the
Yeah.
beginning of the call, like, hey,
Yeah.
just before we get into it, do you have a hard stop at the hour or whatever?
Yeah.
And they'll let me know.
Do they usually have a hard stop, or is it kind of open?
Usually they don't. No.
Yeah.
Usually we get to the 30-minute mark and they're like, oh no, let's keep going.
Good. That means
Wanna
you're doing a
hear
good job. So that's like so potentially what you want to think about is you have to ask yourself, are they sold that there's a potential problem? That's the biggest thing. Are they sold as a problem, potential problem? Because like otherwise, what you show them might be a nice to have. It's like, oh, it seems nice, like, and you don't want that to be the case. You want to be able to make sure they're fully aware, hey, this is 100% a problem, and if I don't fix this, that's going to lead to other problems. Or, oh, right, I actually haven't thought about this. I think you're right. I think this is a problem. I need to do more homework now. And then you can help facilitate that. Hey, listen, like, so here's actually what I recommend. Let's set up another call in like a week. But what I recommend, because you mentioned like you're not 100% sure, you need to talk to your director of IT, et cetera. Like, would you be okay if I reach out to your director of IT, had a separate call with them first? I can do a deeper dive into the nitty gritty with them, maybe like a full hour deep dive, and then I can come back and share with you these what I've learned to save you a little bit of time. Would that be of value to you? So like that saves them a little bit of work. So then you're able to like go on the ground floor, get all those problems, and bring it to light. It's really hard to say these problems don't exist when they're telling you from their own team.
For sure. Yeah, I think what I can do also is the insights. They find them very valuable.
Yep.
But I think I need to spend more time towards that tail end saying, hey, is any of this resonating with you?
So as you do the insights, you should be stopping and it's like, does this resonate? Does this show up in your world? And as you're going through, they should be like nodding their head. They should be like, yeah, this like that means you nailed it. They're like, yep, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah,
right.
we see a lot of that. I think I need to intersperse that a little bit more to get them speaking, because there's a lot of like head nodding, yeah, but there's not enough, join in on the conversation. How are you handling this today? What's your experience with this?
Right.
Is that what you're seeing things like that. Yeah.
So you want to imagine if you talk for more than a minute, that's probably time to pause. So especially when you're sharing the deck, because they'll go blinded, if you will, over time. So you have like, hey, let's like here's key insight number one. This is the problem they're seeing. 1, 2, and 3. How's this show up in your world? Or what are your thoughts on this? Yeah, we're definitely seeing that. Cool. Tell me a little more. What do you mean? So this gets them really like thinking, like, yeah, this gets them much more engaged into the problem.
Yep.
Because if you do right, you're speaking to their soul. Like, what's on your deck, they should be like, oh yeah, this is like, have you been following me around? Like, have you been listening to our calls in the boardroom? Like, that's how you feel. That's when you know you've nailed the insights and the problems.
Okay. Less presentational, more conversational with a backdrop.
Yeah, let me show you an example, okay? Like, I'll kind of show you how I do it, so you can kind of see it. So, like, this is the B2B part of my business. Let's close this. I'm like, cool. Let me kind of walk you through some key trends we're seeing. So, number one, here's a big problem across the board, across all industries. Only 40% of people are hitting their numbers. Now, you told me your team is at like 38%. So that sounds about right, huh? That's it. Like, yeah, that's right. Okay, cool. Now, here's what we're seeing though across the board though, right? So here's a challenge we're seeing with CROs. Like number one, revenue pressure, doing more with fewer resources, pipeline instability, missing targets, inconsistent generation, forecasting struggles like inaccurate forecasts, tough planning, high CAC, inefficient sales, drive up costs, bottom line impact, really lower profitability, cash flow issues, and high rep turnover. How does this show up in your world? Now we're talking about this, right? We're talking about this, right? And then we're seeing, of course, from other people in your org, right? The sales VPs, inconsistent rep performance, low quota attainment, longer sales cycles, smaller deal sizes, more stall deals and low win rates. You told me you have like an 18% win rate, which is even below the industry average of 20%. So it's not even that great, realistically. Slow onboarding, long ramp to first deal. Do you happen to know how long it takes for the rep to basically ramp and close the first deal? Man, it's like way too long. It's probably at least 3 months. Got it. What do you want it to be at? I mean, realistically, like in month one, they should be closing deals. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. We're seeing low tool adoption, missed efficiency gains, and of course, culture risk, excuses. And morale. Are you seeing that by chance? Are people complaining now and saying it's the market, it's whatever? Yeah, they are saying that. So you can see how it's very interactive, even with this one slide. So like that's how like you kind of want yours, not exactly verbatim, but you kind of get my point where it's very like conversational.
For sure.
This just helps guide the conversation as well.
Yeah, that's something I'm definitely going to take away from this call because I want to share the insights, but I have a feeling that being able to get their feedback on this, even though in a perfect world, right? I have call number 2 for deep discovery. Yep. You still got to start that, right? You still got to start that in call number 1 to get them feeling invested, get them feeling 100%. Like they have skin in the game, right? Like they're being understood. So right. I'm definitely going to be thinking through like, how am I interjecting more of those types of questions into the course of call number 1?
Yep. Cool. Good question, brother.
So if you're a sales leader, what you saw me just do just now, and I'm actually demonstrating, showing what good looks like to my team, right? And a lot of times, I found, you can train reps, give them all the tools, all the resources and whatnot. But sometimes actually just showing them live how it's actually done is so powerful, whether it's you're doing a live on a sales call with them and showing them exactly what it should look like, or you're training live, you role play them live so they can see what it looks like, or you can give them one of your calls. That by itself can be so powerful to show them, hey, this is what I expect. This is how you run a discovery. This is how you do a demo. You can see in Joseph's face here, he knew some of the core elements of what to do. But once he saw me actually go through a live as an example, just a couple of my slides, he's like, oh, I could see how you make it much more interactive versus just kind of riffing down all the slides. Now, I hope you enjoyed watching me coach these live students all across the board. It's tons of fun for me, hopefully a lot of fun for you. Now, if you're an AE and if you're interested in getting coaching yourself, you can book a call below with my team, see if it's a good fit for our coaching programs. And if you're a sales leader and you want me to coach your team just the exact same way with your team specifically, you can also book a call below as well. And if you want to see exactly how we're closing over 40%, we're using the powerful sales methodology, check out this video right here.